This week I will show you how to draw and paint those cute ducks. When I saw this image, I knew I had to paint it. And you can get the link to the reference image, which is a copyright-free image from Unsplash, in the description of the video. So I'm drawing with a method that I called upside down, so it speaks by itself. You just flip the image upside down and you draw without thinking what it is you are drawing. It's just a way to trick your brain, so you're not drawing what you think it is, but just what it is actually. I know it seems weird, and if you've never tried to draw upside down, I would strongly advise that you try that one day, because it's really amazing what you can achieve with this simple trick. When you're done, you can flip over again and fix the mistakes, because maybe not everything is in the correct place, and especially you need to go over with more defined sketch. So I remove the excess graphite with a kneadable eraser, and then I go over looking at the reference image and looking at my proportions. Here the beak seems to be very, very long. Now that I'm looking at the video, it's it's almost weird, but in the end it will be fine, I promise. So draw everything back, and I know it seems a bit strange because I am erasing the graphite, drawing again, then erasing again, and yeah, now I'm ready to paint. And this is one of the 3 methods that I show in my membership this month. The topic is how to draw something before painting it. So this is the first method I show, and there are 2 more. If you want to know more about my membership, you have the link in the description under the video. We are both learning art fundamentals and gouache painting at the same time. I want to paint this with gouache, but before that I want to give a watercolor background, because you can mix watercolor and gouache. Did you ever try that? It's really fun. So first thing, I'm spraying water on my paper because I want a very diffused color. I want to render the light shining in the muddy water, and it's kind of difficult to achieve with just gouache, but it's very cool if you add watercolor and then on top of it you can add gouache and fix any mistakes you will make. So this is very loose, and I am covering the drawing with watercolor because I will go on top over with gouache, and I know that gouache is opaque. Even if maybe being white, I should have left it untouched. Well, we'll see that later. Let it dry completely, and it can take quite some time because you want it to be bone dry, not just to the touch. Otherwise, your gouache will fuse inside the watercolor and you will get something that is really muddy. I want to place the darkest shadows first. And yes, I know they seem very, very dark, but I want the white of the ducks to really pop out. So in order to have something that is really contrasting very well, you need to go very dark in your dark shadows. And I'm talking about this in one of my membership lessons about contrast, which is the most important thing. Contrast and value. Color is just the cherry on the cake. If your values are correct, everything will be fine. So it may seem a bit too dark at this stage, but trust the process. And once you have painted the beaks with 2 different orange, one light and one dark for the part in the shadow, you can go with white. So I'm using a very opaque white. I mean, there are different kinds of white, and this one is permanent white, so it's supposed to be the opaque, most opaque one. I do have a color under from the watercolor layer, and so I know I will have to place 3 layers of white to achieve the really pure white that I want. So I'm not very concerned about this layer. This is the first one, just to cover the background and give me an indication of the values. So use your finger to blend a bit. Yeah, I know. I'm always using my finger. And I'm using a flat brush on purpose because I want it to be kind of loose, because loose is my style. I will switch to a smaller brush later. Now is the time to switch to a smaller brush. Give some details, like the shadows in the beaks, the little nostrils, I don't know what it is, I think it's nostrils on the beaks, and the eye, just to make the features visible so I can go with details in the water, and water will be the fun part. And now that I look at it, doing the voiceover once the painting is finished, I think that at this stage the water was really great. Maybe I should have left it this way, but it's too late. Never mind. Some highlights in the water, and I'm using a tiny bit of yellow in my reflection because the reflection is not supposed to be as bright, as white as the duck by itself. You need to think that your image has to be readable after. We need to understand what it is at the first sight. And if you use the same white in the reflection, it might look a bit confusing to the eye of the viewer. So now some contrast in the water. I'm using a brownish, greenish, well, I don't know what is the color. Very liquid. My goal here is to really figure the ripples on the water, and it's kind of tricky to do, I know. So I'm going very, very loose, and I'm spraying water to help the color blend. I want the pigment of the gouache to blend with the watercolor under, and this is possible if my gouache is very liquid. And then it will give me a first layer that I can grip on with a more thick color of gouache, a more heavy paint that will really stick to the previous one. Well, you have to feel it. It's kind of difficult to see on video. You really have to grab your brush and make experiments with this. It's something I have a hard time to explain on the science side of things. I think it's due to the size of particles of pigments in gouache and watercolor. And now the second layer of white, and I'm still using a very opaque white. This one is a permanent white, and it's really white. You can see on the water, and then cover what I did before on the ducks. I think it will require a third layer, as I suspected. And maybe you thought that my first layer of shadows were too dark, but yeah, it's not dark enough actually. I have to darken it even more so my white is really standing out. It's something you have to really feel. If you want the light color to pop out, you need to surround it with dark colors, because you cannot go whiter than white. So all you can do is darken what is surrounding the white, so the white appears lighter, not whiter, but lighter. So I'm using a very dark shadow. Maybe it looks a bit strong, but let's blend a bit the edges, and you will see that this will do the job, because so far it's wet, so it looks a bit darker than what it will be when it will be dry. And yeah, I'm blending a bit the edges with a clean brush, and it's getting way better now. So I don't know if it happens to you too, but I was happy with my painting, and the day after, when looking at it, I was not happy anymore with it. So let's tweak it a bit, adding a third layer of white, and this time I am switching to a titanium white, which is maybe even brighter than the permanent white. It depends on the brands, really. You have to make tests with your brands available in your country. So fixing some highlights and also adding more highlights on the water, because so far I don't really see the movement. The water is moving a bit because the ducks are moving forward, so it's creating ripples in the direction all around the ducks. The first thing is highlights, and then I will go back with darker colors. Maybe I should have been the other way around and have the white on top of everything, but that's the way it is. So always in the idea to have my white really standing out, I need to darken everything all around. So I'm using a very liquid gouache, always to have it merge with watercolor under and a very dark color. Yeah, I know it looks weird now that I'm looking at it, but when it dries, it's really lighter. This is one of the weird things with gouache. It really changes the value of the color when drying. So dark color tends to dry lighter and light colors tend to dry darker, but it's really subtle. I'm not sure this is even showing on camera, but I'm pretty sure you have seen that before. Well, and now I'm happy with the result. I must say it was worth it to add more white and add more dark. Maybe there is something weird in the third duck that has the beak on top of the tail of the second duck. It's hard to read, but that's the way it is. So a bit more bright yellow just to have everything pop out. And I'm pretty sure I'm done with this one. So I hope you like it and see you soon. Bye bye.